Hello, and welcome to our 6th D&D 3.5 Prestige Class Review. In this series, I'm going to be going over the various aspects of a particular D&D 3.5 Prestige class, and evaluating the class on its concept and execution. I'll also give my thoughts on its individual features, as well as some ideas for how I would improve the Prestige class. I will assume you will have fairly in-depth knowledge of the D&D 3.5 rules for the purposes of this review, and as with any review, in the end this all boils down to my personal opinion. Today we're going to be looking at the Master of Masks, a prestige class from the Complete Scoundrel. This is a prestige class based around crafting masks, which you wear to disguise your alignment and give yourself various abilities. To get into this class, you're going to need 8 ranks each in Bluff, Disguise, and Perform, as well as knowing any 4 languages. You also must successfully impersonate someone to his closest friends. The 4 languages requirement, alongside this class's advancement in spellcasting, makes it clear that it is intended primarily for bards, but rogues can also get into it pretty easily, as well as a particularly fitting class for this prestige class, the Beguiler from the Player's Handbook 2. You get a d6 hit die, and good reflex and will saves with this class, furthering the bardic archetype. However, you only get 4 plus intelligence modifier skill points per level, so you're going to have to pick and choose what skills you keep up with for this class if you're coming from bard or rogue. The class also gives you an extra level of spellcasting at 2nd, 4th, 7th, and 9th levels, so if you are a bard or beguiler, you can add a bit to your spellcasting ability here. The main feature of the Master of Masks prestige class is, unsurprisingly, your masks. You start with 2, gain another at level 2, then another at levels 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. You can put them on as a standard action, or remove them as a move action. It costs 100 gold to make a mask, and takes 8 hours of work. You can't share your masks with anyone, and wearing one takes up your lens or goggles body slot, so hopefully you're not planning on wearing any of those magic items. You can learn to create any of the masks at any level, but they do improve through your levels in the Prestige class. Your choices for mask are that of the Angel, Archmage, Assassin, Demon, Dragon, Faceless, Gladiator, High Priest, Jester, Lich, Lord, and Savage. While wearing a mask, you gain 1 or more special abilities. The Angel Mask gives you the ability to use Feather Fall on yourself at will. You can also use the Fly spell as a swift action 1 to 4 times per day. Falling damage isn't hugely common in most D&D campaigns, but it still comes up somewhat often, so this is a nice thing to have in your pocket, or rather on your face, while adventuring in an area with lots of drop-offs. Flying, on the other hand, is very useful to have, and neither bards nor beguilers get access to this spell normally, so this ability will add a lot of utility to your character. The Archmage Mask lets you cast Charm Person, Dancing Lights, Detect Magic, and Magic Missile once per day each. It gives you Invisibility and Scorching Ray at 4th level, Lightning Bolt and Slow at 7th level, and Dimension Door and Ice Storm at 10th level. Some of these spells overlap with the Bard spell list, and a bit with the Beguiler spell list, but they are still useful additions, and they help to make up for the missed spellcasting levels you suffer from taking this prestige class. If you're a rogue, this mask can be really useful, as you wouldn't get access to any spells at all otherwise. Speaking of the rogue, the Assassin Mask gives you sneak attack damage, scaling with your class level up to 4d6, so slightly slower than that of an actual rogue. You also get a +2 bonus on move silently and hide checks, improving up to +8 at level 10. This can give you some very strong stealth ability, but the sneak attack, though it does stack with that of any actual rogue levels, will leave you behind that of an actual rogue of your character level. The Demon Mask allows you to use Summon Monster 3 once per day. Later, you can use Summon Monster 4 or 5 instead. This is a once per day spell ability that allows you to use a spell that is already on your spell list as a bard. This ability will have some usefulness for rogues and beguilers, but if you're playing a bard, this one is likely worth skipping. The Dragon Mask allows you to breathe fire in a 30-foot cone as a standard action 3 times per day. It deals 2d8 to 10d8 damage, roughly equivalent to your class level. This isn't a bad ability for dealing with lower level foes, though its usefulness will fall off fast, and fire is an energy type a lot of creatures resist or are outright immune to. Still, this is a fun and flavorful ability, and if you have an extra space for it, it's worth taking. The Faceless Mask gives you a +5 on saves against mind-affecting spells and abilities, as well as an ongoing non-detection spell to protect you from enemy divination spells. This can be useful, but unless you're in a game where the villain is a very pragmatic wizard, it's unlikely to do too much for you. Even then, non-detection doesn't stop the most common divination spell, Scrying. The bonus against mind-affecting spells is very useful, but keep in mind you can only gain the benefits of 1 mask at a time. This one can be nice, but can likely be replaced with magic items such as Amulet of Proof against detection and location. The Gladiator mask gives you proficiency with all martial and exotic weapons, as well as a +1 competence bonus on attack and damage rolls. This increases up to +4 later on in the class. This is useful if you plan to fight with weapons and want to make up for your class's lesser base attack bonus and damage output capabilities. It's pretty self-explanatory. A solid option in some circumstances, but not the best one. The High Priest mask is like the Archmage mask, but the spells are Bless, Cure Light Wounds, Protection from Evil, and Sanctuary. You also gain Aid, Lesser Restoration, Cure Serious Wounds, Death Ward, Remove Curse, and Neutralize Poison later on. These spells are useful if your party doesn't already have a cleric, or it can be useful to help support your cleric with some restorative spell casting, but it's probably best to leave this one for later levels so you can gain access to the more powerful spell options right away. The Jester mask gives +2 on Balance, Perform, Sleight of Hand, and Tumble checks. If you really need to buff up your Perform skill for reasons such as Countersong or the like, you can use this mask, but otherwise it is one of the weakest ones. The Lich mask gives you Cause Fear and Detect Undead as spell-like abilities usable once per day. Later on you also gain False Life, Halt Undead, and Fear, each also once per day. It also gives you Cold Resistance 10. This one is nice for the spell-like abilities, but gives fewer of them than the Archmage or High Priest masks. The Cold Resistance is a nice little benefit, but very situational. I would likely not use this mask if I were making a Master of Masks. The Lord mask similarly gives some spell-like abilities. It starts out with Remove Fear once per day. You can later gain Eagle Splendor, Heroism, and Dispel Chaos as spell-like abilities as well. You also get +2 on Diplomacy and Gather Information checks, which later improves to +8. While this skill bonus might be useful for a so-called Diplomancer build where you want to max out your Diplomacy skill, it's going to be somewhat mediocre otherwise. Lastly, the Savage mask gives you 2 claw attacks, whose damage starts at 1d4 but improves to 2d6 by 10th level. The claws count as magical for the purposes of overcoming damage reduction. This is a nice, flavorful ability, but in practice, you will likely already have a magic weapon, and while 2d6 is good damage, you likely will not have the strength score to really take advantage of it. This one's probably worth skipping as well, unless you get captured and everything is taken from you except for your masks. Aside from your masks, which are the main feature of the Prestige class, you also get a few supplemental features. At 3rd level, you get Mask Specialist, which gives you +2 to the save DC of effects created by magic item masks you wear, or +2 to any skill bonus one provides, or +2 to its caster level if neither of the 2 previous benefits apply. It's very important to note that this does not apply to the masks you create. It's only other magical items that are masks that you might find in the campaign. This can be useful on the only mask in the SRD, the Mask of the Skull, which can use Finger of Death as a spell-like ability. A +2 to the DC of the save versus death would be useful in that instance, but overall this class feature is held back by the fact that it doesn't apply to the magical masks you make with this class. At level 5, you get the ability to wear multiple masks at one time, and switch between their effects as a move action. At level 8, you can wear 3 simultaneously and switch between their effects as a swift action. And finally, at level 10, you can wear 4 masks simultaneously, and switch between their effects as an immediate action. This is a nice ability that gives you extra flexibility, especially at level 10 when you can respond to an attack or effect by switching masks so as to better resist whatever it is. And lastly, at level 6, you gain your last unique class feature, which is the Hidden Mask class feature. It allows you to make any masks you wear either invisible or visible again as a swift action. You get the benefit of the mask whether it's visible or not. While this somewhat defeats the flavor of the class, it is very useful because it allows you to appear normal while wearing your masks. For an interaction-heavy base class like the Bard, or Beguiler, or Rogue, that is a good thing to have. It's quite likely the High Lord or King will not be happy you are wearing a mask in his presence. This ability's use is otherwise fairly circumstantial, but it is still nice to have. This Prestige class fills its dead levels with bonuses to spellcasting. If you play a Rogue in this class, you miss out on that benefit, and you don't get anything else to fill it. That's a major disadvantage of the class overall, alongside with the fact that you don't get to improve your spellcasting every level in the first place. Overall, I think this Prestige class is a weak option for rogues in a lot of ways, but taking 1 to 3 levels to gain up to 4 mask options can be good if you don't mind missing out on 1 to 2 dice of sneak attack. The trade-off can be quite worth it. For bards, this slows your spellcasting significantly, but at least you benefit from what advancement it does provide. It gives you more features than bard itself does at those levels, but there are likely better Prestige classes for the bard. For Beguilers, this also slows down your spellcasting, which is one of your main features, if not your main feature. It also cuts into your Beguiler class features. Admittedly, many of those class features are somewhat mediocre, as the fainting for spell vulnerability shtick of the Beguiler has many issues. I'd say this is a good option for Beguilers who don't mind diverging a bit from their spellcasting. I'm not sure I could recommend more than 3 levels in this Prestige class, but if I did, it would probably be for the Beguiler. As for how I'd change this prestige class, I'm not sure I'd give it a spellcasting progression at all. I would certainly consider condensing it to 5 levels. The fast mask switching is useful, but detracts from the flavor of the class in my opinion. I would have provided other benefits for it. I also would have either removed the mask specialist feature or at least made it apply to the persona masks you craft as part of the class. That said, I think this prestige class is a bit above average and very flavorful. I give it 5 stars for concept and 3 stars for execution. It's certainly not a complete waste of levels, especially if it's a campaign where you can get away with playing a bard or beguiler anyway. You will find plenty of use for its abilities in such situations. It might struggle a bit in pure hack and slash campaigns, but the classes it tends to attract don't perform superbly in those campaigns anyway, so I don't think it's fair to hold that against it. So, that's about it for this prestige class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, etc. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.